We made this.
Welcome back to the Decade, the podcast where we go back 10 years and reflect on pop culture of the time. For the first time in a while, I'm Thomas Adams, and I'm joined by Nick Hoffman. Nick.
What's up? What's up? What's up?
It's good to talk to you. We are doing this for the first time in like almost 2 months because we are now both parents and experiencing the wonder that comes with that, the highs and the lows.
Yeah, what was the last? What did we talk about last time? I don't even remember. Felt like it was
We talked about
Scott Pilgrim. Is that
Scott
right?
Pilgrim. That was back in like mid-July. It was like a couple days before my daughter was born, and my daughter like just turned 7 weeks old. So
Yeah.
It's been a good bit. Your daughter just had her 1 month, right?
Yep. 1 month appointment.
And everything's going well. The beautiful baby girls, both healthy and loving to drive us crazy, but also never-ending joy as well.
Yeah, I mean, we should mention that we tried recording this 12 hours ago, and that failed. So here we are, trying it again.
It's kind of, this is how it's going to be for us for a little bit, I feel like, is it's just going to be an endless battle to find time. I don't know about you. I know that am I correct that you and Kat have both been home with Lizzie for the whole month? Like, neither of you are working?
Yeah, no, we don't work. It's just been two of us just trucking away, man, just day by day, taking a day at a time. And it's obviously has its ups and downs, strikes and gutters, but we make it work, and she's beautiful and amazing, and I'm just glad. I mean, one of the silver linings of being a part of pandemic 2020 is that, at least I get to spend all this quality time with my daughter,
with your family, yeah,
wife, and
it's nice.
Otherwise, I'd be out traveling and doing all kinds of work. So
it's nice that it's been able to, keep us grounded. At least we were home for 2 weeks, the two of us, and then I went back to work for about a month, but working from home. And Caitlin's back at work now, working from home. But it's a challenge. Like I can tell you that I far underestimated how difficult it would be to work from the house and then have her crying in the next room, or whatever it might be that she's doing in the next room while I'm trying to work, and my brain just struggled to find the capacity to focus on anything but her, because it's still so fresh, and you're trying to like keep up with work responsibilities. And in an ordinary time we would just go back to the office, but it's not the time that we're in. So I'm on paternity now and doing, full-time parent while Caitlin goes back to work. And that's harder. As I'm finding out, that's harder than like my regular job, because they just require constant attention, as now. But every little thing is its own, it's its own like riddle you have to solve, like, because they can't tell you what's wrong with them. You're just constantly guessing at what it might be and trying to like do some like 1,000-piece puzzle, it feels like, just to figure out what's going to calm down the baby.
Yeah, man, we've been questioning like all of our parental decisions every day. It's like, are we doing it right? It's like one thing I would do one thing, and then the next day I would read something on the internet how that was the wrong thing to do, and I'm like, what? It's right, it's wrong. This is right, this is wrong. I don't know, man.
That's the thing with our generation, though. There's so many like books and websites that are like there to tell you what to do, but it's like parenting's been around since the dawn of time, and they didn't have all that shit, and somehow it worked out. So I don't know. Like we're just kind of rolling with it, and obviously, you want to get things right, but that's the one thing I've learned this past couple of months is I need to stop trying to plan things because she's just not gonna let me. They
Yeah.
they run on their own schedule, and whatever schedule that you think you're gonna have, think again.
Yeah, you just gotta hope for the best there. I mean, you can certainly plan things, but don't plan on attending those plans.
Don't plan on fulfilling it. Let's talk a little bit about it's been a long time, and obviously we've both been busy. I've surprisingly been watching a ton of movies since she was born because it's been like kind of our ritual that like Caitlin would go to bed and I would watch a movie at night while she was going to sleep. What have you guys been doing to kind of like pass the dead time that kind of exists during the day?
Like when she's taking a nap during the day, I don't know how proud I am of this, but I've been watching a lot of Below Deck. Oh, you know this show on Bravo?
Yeah, you've talked about this before.
Oh, okay, well,
The ship captain show.
yeah. Then we've gone back and like watched all the old seasons with like Captain Lee, so that's been entertaining. I really find it to be a pretty entertaining, like fascinating little reality show.
Yeah, those reality shows are like there's so much content that it's really easy to just like bury yourself in it, and then all of a sudden you've watched like a dozen seasons. It
Yeah,
feels like.
but I mean, I've also been watching some good shows. I've been reading as well. There's one show in particular that I'm really excited about called Lovecraft Country, but I've been reading the
Oh
book.
yeah, I've not been able to check that out yet, but I've heard mixed things. I've heard people that are really into it and some that are like very confused.
Yeah, the book's amazing, and I'm almost done with it, so I'll start watching the show soon. But
Hmm.
we've been watching some documentaries. We watched like the Class Action Park documentary, which is really good.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'll tell you this: HBO Max is incredible. If you don't have HBO or HBO Max, that platform has so much content.
It
It's just,
is. It's really hard to beat that catalog, and
dude,
like for me, like obviously all of the great HBO content,
yeah,
but the part of it that I've really enjoyed is they have Turner Classic Movies, and I've really enjoyed being able to like use it to check out older stuff like classic cinema from
yep,
the 40s, 50s, and 60s or whatever, and just like watch old westerns, or like they have like Casablanca and just like ultimate classics that you could check out whenever you want. I like that platform a lot. It's been more impressive to me than say like Disney Plus, I would say.
oh yeah, man. I mean, HBO is like they've always been content over anything else, man. Like they've always had the best shows, and we got into this show Perry Mason, which
Hmm.
they rebooted Perry Mason, which is an old show from like the 80s, 90s that was like a daytime, it's kind of like a Matlock sort of show, like a daytime lawyer show, where now is they've placed it in the 30s, and it's just kind of very film noir, just really well shot and well acted. The cast is badass, and we really enjoyed that show. Look forward to watching that every Sunday. We watched most of that, I guess all of that before the baby came, so that was good.
Yeah, and that's a show too that I feel like they could just keep doing. Like it's a remake from something that existed. I'm not sure how long ago, but I know that I've heard Perry Mason for a long time. It's Matthew Reese from The Americans
Yeah,
is the lead, and he's always really great.
I never saw him in anything until Mr. Rogers, that movie that came out last year, which is
Oh yeah, he is in that.
yeah, I never
That's a
watched The
movie.
Americans.
That's a movie I liked, but then kind of forgot about.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, we've really not. The thing about since the babies come is that Caitlin and I's schedules have just become like very separated, unfortunately, because we're trying to like navigate the day to day to where one of us is able to sleep if when the other's not, and one of us is able to like go exercise when the other's home, and just stuff like that. So like she's been watching a lot of shows. Like she's gotten into Homeland recently, which is a show that I watched the first season a long time ago. And for whatever reason I stopped, and now she's into it. And I forgot how good that show is early on. It's really like entertaining, and the mystery kind of like keeps you on the edge of your seat from episode to episode. But for me, I've just like thrown myself. I've given myself this project, and it's kind of an ambitious project. But every month, I want to pick a director and watch all of their movies, because I kind of did it with Christopher Nolan like earlier in the summer, especially in 2020 when we're just getting like so few new movies. I was like, it's a perfect opportunity to like go and look into a bunch of famous directors and kind of cross off some of their stuff that I've not seen before. So like the entire month of August, I watched more or less the entire filmography of Steven Spielberg, which was quite an undertaking because it's like 30 movies.
That's insane.
But I watched 26. There's like some that are either like not well known or like not well reviewed that I was like, I don't need to waste time with this one. But if it was like something that I had heard good things about, or something that I knew like was at least interesting, even if it was bad, I wanted to watch it. So like for the first time ever, I watched things like Close Encounters of the Third Kind and Schindler's List, Saving Private Ryan, Munich, just a lot of really great movies. And I mean, it's not a secret that Steven Spielberg is really good at his job. Yeah, it just reminded me, and some stuff that I just had not seen since I was little, like Jaws and E.T. and Jurassic Park, and they're just so good. And I had so much fun with it that I like have kept it going. So like this month I'm doing David Fincher, and I think next month I might do Paul Thomas Anderson. I was thinking maybe I would like do Alfred Hitchcock and watch like a select few of his, just because I've always been a fan, but I'm really only familiar with the famous ones. But I don't know. Yeah, that's been fun. And God, it's been so long since we've recorded. Like, two things have changed. One is that sports are back.
Yep.
The world has not necessarily evolved past this pandemic. We're still very much in it, but sports are back. The NBA bubble has been in full thrust for the past couple of months.
Huge success.
It's been a huge success. The games have been phenomenal.
I am obsessed with it, dude. I've watched, I would say, out of every game in the bubble, since it started back in like late July, I've probably watched 87% of every game. I love it so much.
That's a high percentage. And I think like what I loved early on was the first round, having those games at like 1, 4, 7, like just all day.
So good.
To watch it whenever you want, whenever you have time. We've had some major upsets. Like others have kind of gone pretty chalk. In the Eastern Conference, I was just talking to my friend about this. We have the 3 seed Boston Celtics and the 5 seed Miami Heat in the Eastern Finals right now. And they just had game 1. What an amazing game that was. But it's been 9 years since we had a conference finals that did not have a 1 or 2 seed taking part, which is pretty crazy. And just goes to show you like how good the competition's been in the bubble. For like, he kind of removes home court advantage to an extent. Miami took care of business against Milwaukee, who was the best team in the league through the regular season. So
yeah,
it's just been a crazy ride. So like that's back. Baseball came back, hockey came back, and as of Sunday, the NFL is back in action, and we have fantasy football again. Most of these things happening without fans I did notice on Saturday there was some college football games that like inexplicably were as packed as they would be for a regular game.
No way.
And that was pretty insane to watch and kind of apocalyptic if you ask me. But
I didn't know about that. That's crazy.
yeah, if you see any highlights from the Florida State game on Saturday, there was probably 30,000 people there, I would say.
Oh, it was in Florida, you say?
Yes, it was.
Shocker.
Florida, the one state in the NFL that's allowing fans.
Fuck, man. Yeah. And like with the most COVID cases.
Yeah. Yeah.
Perfect.
Everything is fine. But I think one of the most surprising things for me as someone that's been just a religious consumer of sports my entire life is that I've not really missed the no fans. In the NBA especially, I hardly notice it. Like the action is just as good. Even with the NFL over the weekend, like I didn't notice it in those games.
Yeah, I mean, you barely see them. Who cares?
Right. The one sport where I would say, and this is not a sport I would watch anyway, but like whenever I catch baseball highlights, that's kind of weird to me. Because that's a sport where you're like so used to seeing like fans behind the home plate and like fans catching home run balls. That's kind of strange, but like basketball and football, which are the two sports that I watch the most, I've not missed it at all. I think it's actually worked quite well at enhancing the experience of the game.
Yeah, I mean, I don't go to most games in the country. You know, I live in one place, so I give a shit about the fans in the stands when I'm watching it on TV. And no, it hasn't really been that much different. Like, my brother told me recently, because I asked him about, the Braves, and he was telling me how he doesn't watch sports right now because it's like watching a golf match because there's no fans. And I'm just like, what are you talking about? It's the same shit. It's the same thing. It's just,
it's not, that's not been the case, I would say, with the NBA and the NFL. Like, I would say the one thing about the NBA that I've kind of noticed is that when you have, like, for example, a while ago in the Clippers Maverick series, Luka Doncic made a 3-pointer to win the game at the buzzer. Like, that's a moment where, like, that team celebrated, but, like, in a normal world, that's a moment where, like, the team's running into the fans, like the crowd is interacting and, like, the whole stadium's erupting. Those moments, I would say, are, like, maybe a little more dialed back, but it's still not a massive change. So, yeah, we've had sports back, and that's been, like, it's been wonderful to feel that sense of normalcy. And there was even a brief moment where the NBA had considered canceling and pressing pause, not because of COVID, but because of the players taking a stand against racial justice. The point being to not, like, become a distraction from the issues that are at hand. But I mean, I think that they've still managed to create a, like, really strong platform on the court, and I'm glad we've been able to, like, keep it going.
Yeah, man. Again, just a big fan of the NBA for sure, and I'm glad fantasy football's back. I don't really care about any of the other sports, but I'll watch them. Whatever. Sports is good, especially when they're fighting social injustice, because that's a good thing when Black people and minorities are being murdered in the street all over our country for no good reason. It's a good thing to fight against that and to stand up against social injustice. So that's not
great. That's not great. Maybe we shouldn't do that.
Yeah, and it's nice to see the NBA being in the forefront of things as far as, like, Black Lives Matter and all these other great causes that are against social injustice and fighting the systematic racism that is very extremely prevalent in our country today. And yeah, man, and it gives me even more reason to support them.
Yeah, I won't dwell on this too much, but you have, obviously, like, the NBA courts have Black Lives Matter written on the court. The NFL fields now have slogans on their helmets and in the end zones that say things like Black Lives Matter, like end racism, like stop hate, it takes all of us, whatever. They have all these slogans that they could use. And you can't help but notice a certain group of people. I won't name names, but to say that they support a certain gentleman in the White House right now that are like, I won't watch these sports anymore because I don't like it when sports are politicized. They need to keep politics out of sports.
Gotta
And
shut
it,
the play.
and it's what's insane about that is like, when did racism become a political issue?
Oh
Like
yeah, I mean,
racism is just racism. Like racism is bad. You shouldn't be a racist. I would think that's something that any person could agree with, regardless of political party. But apparently not. Apparently saying that, hey, I'm going to put the words end racism on my helmet is me saying, like, making some sort of political statement. But that's kind of beside the point. It's just been one of the things that's gone on since sports came back. That's just a reminder of how fucked some of our society is.
yeah, I mean, they're the ones that politicize it. There's nothing
Right.
political. There's nothing political about it. I mean, you choose to make it political, and there you have it.
Yeah. We had a whole conversation about that in June though, and it still continues to be a problem to this day, but hopefully little by little we could take care of that. The other thing that has gone on the past couple of months is that movie theaters did come back, sort of. I know that's a conversation that we had a lot in the first couple of months of this podcast. We talked a lot about Tenet and our desire to see Tenet because of our affinity for Christopher Nolan. Tenet did come out, sort of an odd release. Like theaters are kind of in this odd space where they're trying to follow social distance policies. They're like keeping theaters at a certain capacity. I think it's 40%. You're supposed to sanitize before and after you leave the theater. All these different like regulations and rules that are going into it now. At the end of the day, you're sitting in a dark room with a bunch of strangers, not really wearing a mask because you're eating and drinking. So it was never really a good idea to start, which is why I think what you're ultimately going to see is that Tenet will have been like the only movie to open for the entire year from like March until March. But I'm a maniac and I spent $150 to rent out a private theater for myself and a couple of friends that we see on a regular basis to go and see Tenet. And I was kind of let down, unfortunately. It's not
Yeah,
it's not
unfortunately.
the experience I wanted.
Yeah, that's what I hear. It's like
It,
it's like Inception. It's like the frustration of Inception tenfold or something like that. No.
um, I would say, and this is something that like I've considered like writing about this because I'm interested in why I think Inception works and Tenet does not, because they're similar concepts where there's a lot of espionage involved in both films. It's kind of like spy thrillers. Nolan giving his take on James Bond in sort of a weird, Nolan-y, twisty way. But the thing with Tenet and what makes Inception different is that like Inception always kind of has this logic to me. They build the dream world and there's like very concise rules to how the dream world works. From like the first 10 minutes of this movie, okay, if you die in the dream, you're supposed to like wake up. And they establish things like that early. And you also have characters that have motivations outside the premise. Like the DiCaprio character wants to get his children back. Like he's haunted by the death of his wife. There's stuff like that. Tenet is just like all premise. The characters offer nothing. They really want nothing besides like cliches. Like the villain is a Russian that wants to like ruin the world, which is the most cliched villain you could find in an action movie.
Nice.
And the action is very cool. It's very interesting. The concept of Tenet, for those that don't know, is that in the future they've found a way to invert time. It's not time travel necessarily, but they've found a way that you can like enter a machine and start moving backwards through time. So you're not necessarily traveling back in time, but you're like starting from a point and going backwards.
You're rewinding.
Right, and it makes for some really cool set pieces because you're kind of able to like bring what's moving forward and what's moving backwards and like meet it together in the middle. But the story just is so incohesive, and the sound mixing is pretty poor. It's really hard to understand what they're saying. Oftentimes they're like muffled through a mask because part of the concept is that when you're inverted in time, you cannot breathe inverted air because it's like poison.
Huh.
Yeah, it's not necessarily the experience that I wanted for my first time back to a theater in many, many months, but it still was good to be out again and to see some on the big screen. And it's probably the last time I'll be doing that for the foreseeable future.
Dude, Nugs just took the lead. Sorry. I think we both have this Game 7 on in the background. It's Game 7, Clippers, Nuggets, Denver,
Nugs took
Nuggets
the lead
versus the Los Angeles Clippers. It's so, I mean, I just love, again, back to the bubble. I love the NBA and what they're doing, and this
right,
is
and then
being on. This is like our third Game 7 in the bubble.
Well, yeah, and the Nuggets for back-to-back series have been down 3-1 and come back to tie it up and force these Game 7s. So
Yeah.
if they win again, it's pretty impressive. I've been trying to find the score to the hockey game because not that I really care about hockey, but Tampa Bay is like 1 win away from going to the championship.
Oh yeah, the Bolts. I was just texting my friend about the Bolts. He's a big Bolts fan. I don't really watch hockey, but like it's to each his own, and I'll root for him, for my friend. So go Bolts.
Yeah, I mean they're a team that's like always been very good, and they're maybe unsurprisingly the most popular franchise in the Tampa Bay area, just because they're well run, they're normally quite successful. But they always choke in the playoffs. And so far, I'll knock on wood, the recipe for not choking in the playoffs has been not have fans in the stands. So it's working for them.
Nice.
At that note,
fuck it, man. We got to go back to the decade. How long have we been in here in the present? We got to get out of here.
We've been in the present for too long. Let's hit the decade rewind.
We've been away for so long. We're too like, oh God, what have we done? All right, let's get out of here. Back to the decade.
All right, we are back in September 2010. We're just gonna talk about 2 movies today. We could have talked about 3, but first one back, getting our feet wet again. We're gonna talk about Easy A, which is a teen sex comedy from September 2010, and then Ben Affleck's The Town, a better movie than Easy A. But the Easy A might be an interesting conversation because I think this might be the first movie we've talked about that I like and you don't, maybe, but we'll see.
Sort of. I mean, we had Hot Tub Time Machine, which I think you liked, but like. And I loved.
Well, but you like, and I was less so. But now it's reversed. Now I'm doing the defending of the movie, and you're not as into it.
I was just expecting to go back and watch Easy A and enjoy it like I did the first time I saw it, but that was not the case.
Well, let's just jump right into that. Let's get into our conversation about Easy A.
I used to be anonymous, and nothing, a non-entity.
Olive, that's your name, right?
Yeah, we've had 9 classes together since kindergarten. So here it is, part 1.
Do you want to go out with me?
Brandon, just a couple hours ago you told me you were gay.
You said I should pretend to be straight.
I didn't mean with me.
I am tormented every day at school. Just one good imaginary fling.
Which brings us to part 2.
Was that Olive with Brandon?
No, grunt and make it convincing. You ready for the grand finale?
Yeah, what? Thank you.
I don't know. Do you have any major thoughts on it?
I mean, yeah, I guess. So it's supposed to be like sort of a play on the Scarlet Letter, right? Which is
Right.
a big, she's a student in high school. Her teacher, played by Thomas Hayden Church, did I say his name right?
Yeah.
Yeah. He plays the teacher, and they have this sort of fun relationship, and they talk about the Scarlet Letter in her class, and then she ends up getting caught in this lie because her friend really wants her to tell her that she lost her virginity to some random dude. So she ends up making up a story that she did.
She basically makes up a story that she lost her virginity to some random blind date she was set up with, and like the rumor spreads rapidly.
Yeah, maybe like you'd be better at explaining the plot, because the whole movie's really sort of frustrated me.
The plot's pretty simple. It's basically just that like she makes up this rumor that like the word gets out, and this like devout Christian group in school finds out about it and starts accusing her of promiscuity, essentially. And she ends up getting detention for calling one of these girls a bad name. And then in detention, she meets this gay kid who they like mutually decide to stage this sexual escapade so that she can continue to carry this image of promiscuity. And then the guy obviously wants to come off as straight and try to like hide the fact that he's gay because he had sex with a girl or whatever. And then it just kind of like derails, and a lot of people start like paying her to say she had sex with them. She's not actually having sex with men for money, but she's like taking gift cards to say that she did, which is I say it, you're like kind of fucked up.
No, it's
as a concept.
It's so ridiculous. It's just like my wife Kat said it much better than I can right now, but the fact that she was taking gift cards instead of actual money is just like this weird societal sort of corporate thing with, I'm gonna just support a bunch of local. I mean, does it make it legal? I don't. It's so confusing. I don't get it. Like, why is she just taking gift cards instead of actual money? And she's not doing anything illegal. I don't know. The whole movie,
it's one of those things where I guarantee to you that the gift card angle was some sort of studio note. They were like, we can't have her take actual cash. It would come off too much like she's a hooker. But if she says she had sex with him for $40 to Target, then then it'll be better. It's not like, here's what I'll say about it. Obviously, 2010 was a different time. We've said this countlessly through the different movies that we've covered this year. Like,
yeah, I think
talking about Hot Tub Time Machine. Like, obviously, like that movie has a lot of jokes in it that are kind of outdated today. But I think that what I like about Easy A is it kind of captures this, and it's kind of an overt reference in the movie too. It captures this like John Hughes type charm that you don't really get anymore. Like your 16 Candles, your Breakfast Club, like it captures that sort of like nostalgic feeling for just like lighthearted movies about teens coming of age.
Emma Stone captures it. Like she
captures it solely by herself. I agree. Yeah. Like that's my favorite part of the movie is that, she's this lightning in a bottle performance that has just like endless charisma. And when you see Easy A, I think she was actually she was nominated for a Golden Globe for Best Performance in a Comedy for this movie. And it really is just like the moment I saw it, you kind of get this vibe that this person's going to be a major superstar. And she was. Like, she's continued to just do great work for the most part. She's had some shittier movies, but she's, you know, one of our finest working actresses, I would say, at least of her age range. And the other reason this movie's nostalgic for me is that this is, to date my relationship, this is the first movie date that my wife and I went on together.
Wow.
We were going into our senior year of high school and had like just started talking, and this movie had been out for a few weeks, and we went to see it. And I've told her as much. I actually like began to develop stronger and stronger feelings for the woman that would go on to be my wife.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Emma Stone.
Well, that's kind of where I'm going with this, because the Emma Stone character, like, kind of like she carries herself with this sarcasm and confidence that I found very attractive. And as I was sitting next to Caitlin, like, I noticed a lot of the same qualities in her. Like, she has a lot of similar attributes to her, and just in terms of like her sense of humor and, you know, like her kindness. And she reminded me a lot of the Emma Stone character. And like I liked the Emma Stone character in the movie so much that I was like, oh, I maybe should get serious about this girl that I'm seeing. And it was just kind of like funny the way that worked out. But yeah, I watched it again for the first time in probably 9 years. It had been a while since I saw it. And it doesn't hold up quite as much because, like you say, it's pretty outdated and the premise is a little problematic.
Yeah.
But I still find it to be charming. I think it's a very charming movie, mainly because of Emma Stone.
It's definitely charming, and my biggest problems really lie in like the superficialness of it. I mean, it's where I guess I'm just tired of seeing these like gossipy teen movies that just are there. Everyone's just such a terrible person. Like every single character outside of, you know, Emma Stone's character and the teacher, and like it really like as much as I love, man, I really should know these actors' names. Tucci, who's our boy Tucci, right?
Yeah, it's Stanley Tucci.
As much as I love Stanley Tucci and the woman that plays the wife,
I think her name is Patricia Clarkson.
Yeah, that's right. They're like happy-go-lucky little like family, like the way everything's just so perfect, and they're like always joking around, and it's just ha 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 this and that. It's like that shit's not real, man. Like I can't stand it. It's so annoying. Like it drives me crazy.
You're annoyed by a nice, happy family?
Dude, no, it's just so fake. Like that doesn't exist. That sort of like constant like just those little quips and those little like jokes that are always being made, and like I just don't. I'm sorry, man. I can't. I don't buy it. I don't buy that any household is like that.
Tucci delivers the funniest line of the movie to me.
No, Tucci's great. I'm not saying
early on. I think it's early on where they have a black son that mentions the fact that he's adopted.
Okay, and that's part of the problem that I have with this family is that black son is just a fucking prop throughout this entire film.
He kind of is.
He's like the token black kid, man.
Yeah, he kind of is.
It's ridiculous. And like he's the sort of the butt end of like so many jokes, and I don't know, it's really, I found it to be really uncomfortable.
Yeah, I mean that part's not great. I still think the joke is funny where he says I'm adopted and Tucci goes, "Who told you?" Yeah, no,
it's really charming. It's very cute. Yes, of course.
I don't want to like insert this into your teenage experience, but as someone that's 9 years younger than you,
yeah,
this is what it was like to be a teenager in the smartphone era.
Yeah,
like everyone did suck. Like your take on like, God, why is it so gossipy and everyone like everyone is so shitty to each other, even though like they don't even know each other and they've barely spoken. Like that's kind of what it is. Like that's what it's like to, and you know, I'm in a generation that's like very much on the fringe of that because
Right.
it was very new as I'm in high school and everything. Like for kids that are in high school now, I guess it's not a problem for them this year because they're not really in school necessarily. But it's just like such a, everything is virtual, and that's why like you have so many tragic instances of like kids committing suicide over like cyberbullying, and it's a real problem. And this movie, I think this movie could have been better if it was a little more analytical and critical of that culture. Like if it actually took the time to put some like deeper stakes onto what the Emma Stone character was going through and really highlight just how dangerous and problematic that behavior is. I think it could have been a better movie. Instead, it's pretty like light and breezy with all of it, and like everyone gets away with a lot, I would say. Like the movie lets people off the hook pretty easily with some shitty behavior.
Yeah, like in the end, she just like texts her friend like, "I'm sorry," and her friend's just like, "Okay." I mean, I don't know. You know, I mean, I think Emma Stone is amazing. Like you said, she carries the movie. Like she puts it on her shoulders. She gives her best like Cusack performance. I mean, just really hits it out of the park. But
I mean, that's really what it's riffing off of, right? Right down to the boombox reference from Say Anything at the end.
And she breaks the fourth wall, so we got some Ferris Bueller in there, and she references the Breakfast Club, like pumping your fists in the air, like I got the girl, like all that stuff, which is great. And I get it that you wanna be a John Hughes movie, but you know, and I told you before, I saw this movie when I was 27, which is the age you are now, and now you're rewatching it. When the first time you saw it, you were 17. So I mean, I get that it's a little outdated for me because I don't think it resonates like it would have, 10 years ago. And
Right.
It certainly doesn't resonate like it would have if I was a teenager. So, and I did not grow up in the cell phone era of having that technology in high school. So, I just felt uncomfortable the whole time watching the movie. Like it just made me uncomfortable. I don't know, and I didn't feel that uncomfortable when I watched it like 10 years ago. So I found that interesting in itself. But all the performances are great, man. Like again, like Thomas Hayden Church and Emma Stone and Lisa Kudrow's in there. And
yeah, Lisa Kudrow is a real bitch.
I really like the kid that plays the mascot. I mean, I think he's like one of the more pure souls of the film.
Yeah, he's kind of like the prototypical boy next door character that doesn't really have a lot to do. Like, it's kind of funny. Normally, I guess this is kind of a nice flip on it, but in a typical, I say teen sex comedy, but it's not just, they're not all sex comedies. Like a lot of them are just like teen comedies.
Well, there's zero sex in the movie if you think about it. There's no sex.
No, there's no sex in the movie. But like sex is the source of the humor, I guess.
Yeah.
But you usually have a male lead that's got to get the girl, and the end of the movie is him getting the girl, and the girl just kind of exists as this emotionless figure to help better his life, which is kind of where the whole manic pixie dream girl concept comes from. And that's kind of what the Penn Badgley character is in this movie. Like, he doesn't have a lot to him beyond Emma Stone kind of likes him and has a crush on him.
Yeah.
But he's still funny, and I think that you don't really see a lot of movies like this anymore. And if you do, they're on Netflix.
No, I mean, you definitely don't see movies like this anymore. Yeah, I still think a lost breed. I think it'll come back, but the country
I
needs to
think
get their shit together first, and then maybe we can bring this sort of thing back in the right way.
Yeah, and it's kind of a interesting question of like, what is it that teenagers want nowadays from their entertainment? And this is maybe like such a freaking old fart question, but like, do kids even watch movies and TV, or do they just watch TikToks all day? I don't know. I really don't know. So it's kind
Yeah.
of like, if someone is making a teen comedy, like, is the demographic even there to go see it? I guess we won't know for a while. But I will say, like, and just to like briefly go back to present day stuff, I'm seeing like more and more shows that are in development about social distancing and Zoom, and like kids like getting into all kinds of antics over their Zoom conversations, which I can't imagine what it'll be like to watch that in 15 years. It'd just be insane.
Huh. Shit, you know what? Actually, you know what show reminds me of what you were just talking about we don't get these type of movies anymore, but we're getting them in the form of shows. And there is a really, really good show on Netflix. I can't think of the name of it off the top of my head, but I know it involves an Indian girl and her family. It's like about the Indian culture and like the pressure that she's put through about like having to eventually be courted by an Indian man, and then like they go through the whole ritual of her like marrying an Indian man, like it's all set up and the stress behind that. But she also goes to a public school and she's in love with a non-Indian person, and oh man, it's such a good show. Kat like kind of made me watch it, and I wasn't necessarily interested because I don't know, I just I pick and choose my shows wisely, right? So it seemed kind of like just a dumb teen comedy to me, and then I got through the first couple episodes and I was like hooked. It's so good. You know what I'm talking about? You know the name of it?
I don't. I'm not. I've been trying to like think, and I'm not quite sure I have heard of it before.
Hold on.
But you're right that a lot of and it's not just teen comedies, but like romantic comedies and
Never Have I Ever. That's what it is.
Never Have I Ever. Okay.
So good. I was just like so taken aback by I think like how good it is and how really it like shows. It's a great show for the time that we're in, I think, and I think it really encaptured the
like modern day teen comedy vibe.
I guess I don't know, and it made it to where I wasn't like comfortable watching it because like all that kind of stuff sort of weirds me out now because I'm in my mid-30s. I just don't get how teens work anymore, right? Because we're far out of that. So,
well, it's another aspect of EZA that it's kind of different now. We both have daughters now, and ever since she was born, I'm kind of like looking at everything through the lens of my daughter will eventually grow up and be someone that men could potentially be assholes to. And, that's, I think, an endless anxiety that comes from like being the father to a girl, because men can be really shitty. But yeah, I'm curious if that like affects at all the way that we'll watch movies like that from now on.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of become the dad that says he's got to, waiting to protect his daughter from any sort of intruding young, eager man who's trying to take her away from you. It's like, I don't know. It's definitely a different world for sure.
Yeah, I've tried to pull up like recent teen comedies. There's Booksmart, Good Boys, Blockers, 8th grade, Lady Bird. That's what it has listed. So there has been some good movies that are, of that vein.
Lady Bird's amazing.
Yeah, Lady Bird's a perfect movie.
Lady Bird's a perfect movie. Oh, man.
But I thought Booksmart was really funny. That came out last year.
Was so good. And I thought it was so much better than Superbad. Superbad is one of those movies you watch now and you're like, no, this is not a good movie. It's still funny, but like it doesn't really hold up, right?
And yeah, I agree about Superbad. And like another movie on this list is
Booksmart. It just does everything. I'm sorry, what?
I was just gonna finish your thought on Booksmart first.
I was gonna say Booksmart does everything right. It corrects a lot of the wrongs that I feel like Superbad had. I don't know.
Yeah, but like books, for lack of a better term, Booksmart is woke. Like book,
yeah,
it kind of like it gets a lot of the problematic things that are attached to that genre of the teen comedy, and it's it's pretty like basic premise to that movie, which is just like two girls that never partied in high school want to have like one wild night before graduation. And basic premise, but it was a really good story about accepting people that are outside of your own clique. And I was gonna say before that Blockers is a movie that I didn't expect to like, but I thought that it's doing a similar thing to Easy A and trying to be a movie about this pressure that gets associated with women and sex, and this pressure that women have to have sex before they're ready and whatever it might be. And I thought Blockers was a good movie about like putting that narrative in the power of the girls. Like the girls in that movie all were kind of like driving the outcome of their story, and men had like very little to do with it. So
yeah, I've never seen Blockers, but I'll check it out.
It's pretty good. It's funny. I think we've talked enough about Easy A though. Let's talk about The Town.
I'm thinking about making a change.
Making a change. Either you got heat or you don't. If we get jammed up, we're holding court on the street.
You were going to die in federal prison.
I'm putting this whole town in my rear view.
I'll see you again. This side or the other.
The Town, rated R, starts September 17th.
Tell me a better Boston accent movie than The Town.
Well, it's a good
Wait, what'd you
Boston, say? It's a good Boston accent if it's not John Hamm reciting the words.
Is John Hamm's... What I can't decide about The Town is John Hamm's character doing a Boston accent, or is he mocking their Boston accents?
It's okay. Here's one of my biggest. I love The Town. I love this movie. It's so good. But one of my biggest issues with it, because I love John Hamm too. I love him so much. I've actually met John Hamm in real life. I have a great story where I met John Hamm, and I've seen him speak. It was supposed to be a concert, but the singer got sick, and he ended up just like doing a Q&A with the fans. Anyway,
that's funny.
He's such a good dude in real life. I love him. I love most of his movies. I love his acting. But he only uses a Boston accent in like half a scene of this film. And he just goes back to talking like John Hamm. So I don't, yeah.
Isn't it, doesn't he say something about, I forget the whole line, but it's like a box of quarters or something like that. It's pretty bad. But I think that he's, at least the vibe I get in the movie is he's not actually doing a Boston accent. He's mocking Affleck's Boston accent. He's like kind of like making fun of him. But I don't know. His character is my least favorite part of the movie. Like he's kind of an annoying prick to me. Which is it's always a good testament to a crime movie when you're like, man, fuck these cops. Like, I know these guys robbed a bunch of banks and everything, and they're like not so great. And Jeremy Renner is a real bad dude that just wants to like punch everyone. But I want him to rob that bank. Like, I want Ben Affleck to win in the end, even though I know that they're not necessarily the good guys. I've seen this movie, I think, once before watching it for this podcast, and I didn't like have the fondest of memories of it. I was kind of younger, so for one reason or another, I wasn't necessarily into it. But I really, really enjoyed it this time around. Is this a movie that you had seen like a lot before, or you just saw it like 10 years ago?
Yeah, I saw it probably a year or two after it came out. I didn't see it right away. And I really loved it the first time I saw it. And then I think I watched it again not too long ago. I mean, like, 3 or 4 years ago. And, of course, I still loved it then. And rewatching it a few nights ago, it's a great movie. I really enjoy it. I mean, it has its flaws like anything else, but I think it's another great tour de Affleck, where he writes this character for himself and directs it, and he loves that backdrop of Boston and Fenway Park heist. I think it's it's a little gem of the last decade for sure, and one of the better heist movies in the last 20 years. I mean, obviously, there's a big love for Heat, and you can feel that while watching it. But man, great movie.
Yeah, the heist sequences are just perfectly executed. You get 3 of them, and they kind of gradually build upon each other, like one getting bigger than the next. You start with the heist where they're all wearing the goblin masks, and I think that scene's just got some great tension to it, because obviously it's going to be your introduction to the Rebecca Hall character, who's the love interest of the film. And then it like builds up to the one where they're all wearing the nun masks, and you have this really great car chase that it unwinds to, this tense moment where you think they're boxed in and they end up getting away. And then obviously it finishes at Fenway Park, and it has that giant shootout at a, obviously iconic Boston landmark. But as far as heist movies go, it really doesn't get much better in terms of, I guess, the size of the set piece when it comes to the actual heist sequences. But this is really no, go ahead.
I was going to say one of my favorite kind of iconic moments of the movie too, but one of my favorite just shots of any movie in the 2010s would be that scene where they're on their way to rob that truck outside, and they're all dressed in the nun outfits. Mm-hmm. And that where you have Affleck's character and the nun, he's obviously wearing the nun mask, and he sees a kid in the street with a backpack on, and the kid has just like this like look of horror on his face, and you can it's amazing. You can feel Affleck's emotion through his eyes, like through that mask, that nun mask, where he's just like, God, man, what am I doing? Like, this is I got to get out of this, man. I'm stuck. I need to get out. It's bad. It's bad. I just love that. It's got so much emotion and energy in that one shot, man. It's just beautiful.
Yeah. And you really, I think it's a very well directed movie, and he deserves a ton of credit for that. But in terms of performance, he's never someone that I've necessarily been in love with as an actor. He's kind of hit and miss to me. There's some performances of his that I've been into, and others that have been kind of like, he's kind of half-assing it, like Batman, for example. But this movie, I think that he does such a great job of giving that character humanity, even though him and his brother and their friends, they're these dangerous criminals, but they're not, he's not in it to be a criminal. He's kind of stuck in it through this system that his family's fallen into over years of
he grew into it, man. You know, it was just it was his like rite of passage. It was inevitably like going to fall in his lap, and he was going to have to carry on the family legacy, I guess, you know.
Yeah, and I think that like the Jeremy Renner character is a good contrast to him, because that's a guy that's just been broken down so much and literally doesn't give a shit about anyone but himself. And you obviously feel a lot of sympathy for their relationship because they are so close, but you can't help but just feel like, okay, they need to get away from each other if Affleck's going to ever have a normal life. Yeah. Because so long as Renner's around, it's just going to be nothing but crime and seedy shit. This is really like a golden period for Affleck's career, though, because he does Gone Baby Gone, then The Town, then Argo, and you know, Argo wins Best Picture. All of those movies are incredibly successful. He's not in Gone Baby Gone. He like directs that for his brother, but then he comes back and directs himself in two of his better performances, and then 2 years later does Gone Girl.
I was about to say, yeah, Gone Girl, yeah.
And it's just and Gone Girl is probably my favorite role of his and one of my favorite movies of the decade. But
man, I need to rewatch that one because I listened to the rewatchables on that a couple of months ago, and it's like made me want to go back and watch that movie so bad.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of stories about his experience with that movie, like working with David Fincher. And I think I said earlier in the episode, I'm rewatching Fincher's movies. And we'll actually talk about Fincher more next month because we're going to cover The Social Network. But it's, you know, not to dwell too much on Gone Girl, because that's a movie that I love a lot and we'll talk about in 2024. But he it's really impressive that it's one of those kind of, for lack of a better word, it's a beach read. You know, it's based off this book that was really popular, and you know, women read it on the beach, and the way he directs it just feels like such an art piece.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Town, I don't know how much there really is to say about it, because it's not a movie that necessarily set the world on fire at the box office. Like, it was a moderate hit. It got one Oscar nomination for Jeremy Renner.
Damn, that's it, huh?
That was all. It just probably wasn't as it wasn't as successful as it could have been. But I think it still managed to stay around 10 years later and kind of remain part of the cultural conversation, so to speak. I think it's a movie people still think about today.
Yeah, I don't know why I thought this, but now, you know what? I think I may have been thinking of The Fighter, which I that's actually a movie I haven't seen. I'm really excited about watching that and talking about that later on in the year. But I thought for some reason like Blake Lively had like a Oscar nomination for this role that she played as the. It's like, I swear Blake Lively like got this.
It's the type of role that normally gets Oscar nominations, right? Where this really pretty actress makes herself look like shit by the running mascara and like all of the overdone makeup to look like a drug addict. And
but isn't there a woman in The Fighter that won an Oscar though for her portrayal, right?
Of a very similar character, the mother.
That's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah, the mother character in The Fighter, played by Melissa Leo, is her name.
She won an Oscar, right?
She did. She won the Oscar over Amy Adams, which is ridiculous because I think Amy Adams is much better in The Fighter. But I mean, Blake Lively's performance is fine. She's actually she's underrated as an actress, in my opinion, because I think she gets kind of pegged with that Gossip Girl.
Well, she wasn't in it for very long either, which I forgot. I thought she was in it more. So I was like, she's in like 2 scenes. Like, okay.
Yeah, I had forgotten that Rebecca Hall is actually the female lead of the movie. For some reason, I had remembered Lively as like the main female character.
Yeah.
But really, like, Affleck and Renner are the only things that I remembered a ton about that movie. It is a really great cast, though, top to bottom.
Yeah, for sure, man. Some great performances. I mean, I love John Hamm, of course, and you brought this up before, but I don't know. I guess I thought he was trying to do a Boston accent, but you say he was just trying to mock the character of Affleck. So I don't know. I don't know if it was bad acting or just he actually did not have an accent. He was just that one interrogation scene trying to just fuck with him. But, you know, I thought he was a little out of place in the movie, but also I love John Hamm, so it doesn't bother me that much. They want to nail this guy and ruin his life, and they want him to get like raped in prison. And that's exactly what he says in that scene. And you're just like, what, dude?
Yeah, it's really fucked. It's really fucked up. The whole exchange.
And it is, and it's very much like, you know, it's the way the system has been set up for them. This is why they're in this situation. I mean, they're in this poverty-stricken town of Boston where you're just expected to live these lives of, you know, just slumming it up and, you know, working these jobs that acquire all this manual labor, and like you're just, you know, around the clock, man, just working your ass off, going home. They expect you to just be alcoholics and drug addicts, and that's, you know, that's why you get all these bank heists, these bank robberies. It's, you know, the real statistic is that, like, I can't remember how many robberies had happened in that part of Boston or in that area of Boston, but it was like some ridiculous number that.
Yeah. And it's like in the movie really wants to drive that point home. Like the opening title card is like, "This is Charlestown, where there's more bank robberies than any place in the world."
Yeah, I mean, and why is that? You know, it's like, and these cops just want to, you know, nail them and throw them to the wolves. You know, not really. Let's not try and fix the problem. Let's just keep chasing the you know, these people that are in this like society of, you know, where they had this whole mob connection with the florist, and like there's this very like heavy mob influence on these kids that grow up, and they are expected to just like rob banks, you know, and they're all friends, and it's crazy.
Well, right, and Affleck ends up taking out the mob leader. They kind of should have been thanking him.
Oh man, that's like my favorite scene. I love that shit. It's like, don't forget who clipped your nuts. That was so great, man. Yeah, because I hated him so much. I hated that guy, like the guy running the flower shop, and he was like the head of their little like schemes. And oh man, and that story where he talks about his father and like how he clipped his balls, and I wanted him to get his so bad, and I'm so glad that he did in the end. It was great.
Yeah, I agree. What did you think about the romance in the movie? Like, did that work for you?
No, you know, I actually have a lot of problems with it because, one, and this is probably my biggest gripe with the movie, you know, they take her hostage after the robbery in the beginning of the film, and they blindfold her and they tell her, you know, walk to the water with your toes. And once the toes hit the water, you can take the mask off. And they take her license. They take her driver's license.
Right.
And that is never mentioned by her in the whole movie. She never even talks about it. She doesn't seem concerned about it. So like, so she meets this random guy out of nowhere at a laundromat, and she falls immediately into a relationship with him. And not once is she thinking like, oh yeah, those guys took my license. They know exactly where I live. They could be following me. Am I not worried about that at all? Like, the hell, man. Like, it just, that pisses me off. And then, yeah, just the whole romance is a little, I don't know what's the word.
I agree with you. It's kind of forced, and it's the aspect of the movie that I think works the least for me. And I mentioned earlier how I recently watched all the movies of Steven Spielberg. A movie this reminds me a lot of is Catch Me If You Can, which is like a similar story of like a cat and mouse between a criminal con man and the cop who's trying to catch him. And that movie has like a really brief segment that has a romantic angle between the Leo DiCaprio character and a girl played by Amy Adams, like a young Amy Adams.
Yeah.
And that is so like it's so much shorter than this because it's like one scene in a 2.5 hour movie. But I thought that worked so much better than the romance in the town because it like builds those characters up like really quickly to be like, these people are young, they're naive, and you could very easily believe that they would fall head over heels with each other without very little time of knowing one another, just so long as like they found another person that they could relate to, and that was enough for them. The Rebecca Hall character in the town, she seems really put together. She's successful. She does a lot of work in the community, charity work. We see that she works with Boys and Girls Club. She's just this like really well-rounded person. It doesn't make a ton of sense to me that she falls so hard for him so fast. It just happens really quickly to the point where like in Catch Me If You Can, there's a sequence where DiCaprio has this suitcase full of money and he's at the window of Amy Adams' house and he's begging her to come with him and telling her the truth about who he is. And you see her like so desperately wanting that to be false. Like she so desperately wants to believe that he's this good guy, where in the town, when Ben Affleck comes clean, Rebecca Hall's reality is that like this guy that she let herself fall in love with is the same guy that held her at gunpoint and led to the most terrifying moment of her life. And he's begging her to come with him to like to run away with him to Florida, wherever the hell he wants to go. And it's like, what does she doesn't owe you shit. Like, you've been like, I don't care how much you're into her, you've been awful to her. And I don't know. I just didn't buy that she would consider it for a second, which is why I was unsurprised that she ends up working with the police in the end. But I think the movie kind of was allowing that to be a mystery to some extent as to whether or not she would actually want to go run away with him.
Yeah, and she's great in it. Like Rebecca Hall is fantastic. I mean, I love her. I love her, and her acting's good. And
she's really great in that scene at the end where he's on the phone with her.
Yeah,
and John Hamm's in the apartment with her.
Yeah, it reminds me of one of my sunny days. And I think in the end there, like, yeah, she ends up helping him out ultimately, even though, like you just said, she was traumatized by what he did to her. But at the same time, she saw who he really was and saw that he was trying to get out. So I mean that's a nice story. And she was like his saving grace to really push him to the edge of like, instead of like thinking about leaving this world behind, he's actually going to do it now because he sees like, he sees the potential. He sees what he could get, he sees the kind of life that he could lead. And he doesn't want to almost die anymore every time he goes out for one of these heists or like take all this heat and possibly spend the rest of his life in prison. He wants to lead a life of relative importance and fall in love and be a good person.
Yeah, he gets to leave her with that. He leaves her all the money to build the Boys and Girls Club and writes the note that's like, I'll see you again this side or the other. In his great Boston accent. But yeah,
that beautiful little, the last shot of the movie with him looking out onto a swamp.
Him looking out into the Florida swamp.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a little bit corny, but still a good end to the movie, and a movie that it's kind of, we've covered a lot of good movies this year, but it's wild that this kind of feels like a bit of a step back from, we're doing The Other Guys and Scott Pilgrim and Inception and just all these like amazing all-timers, that it's a good movie like this kind of feels like a step backwards.
Yeah.
But as the year goes on, we're going to get into Oscar season. We also have to admit that we are a lot more run down doing these than we were back in the time before babies. By the time we get to nighttime, I don't even know how to contain my thoughts anymore. I'm just so wrapped up in
Yeah, this episode took how many attempts to record? I think we're on our third or fourth to finish it.
Yeah, it's like the fourth attempt.
And I literally have to go wake my baby up right now to take her to get fed by my lovely wife.
This is our life now. We're just gonna have to like piece it together 20 minutes at a time.
Yep.
But we'll come back and do this again, and I haven't quite looked at the schedule for October. I know that we have Social Network, and that's a great movie.
Yeah, I watched that recently. I love it so much. So I'm fresh and ready to go on that one.
No need for extra homework.
Nope.
But yeah, we'll talk about that and maybe one other thing, but we'll talk about that later. I think we can go ahead and wrap up the September edition of Back to the Decade. We will see you guys next time with hopefully some more sleep in our body, but no promises.
Bye-bye.
All right, see you next time. Bye.
Elsewhere on We Made This. We buy records.
The very idea of not indicating this is a reissue from this year, we would always write on the label the year if it's a reissue. If it's come in to us second hand, you'd have to be a real shitbag, wouldn't you, to like put in a Smith's record and not point out actually this is the reissue from a couple of years ago.
Yeah, no, you would have to be. But we've seen all sorts of dodgy practices, so I wouldn't put it past someone to try it or to deliberately do that.
People are awful.
They are.
Motion pictures.
For that character, the character he plays, Norman, is someone who's held in such high regard by his friends, like decades after the fact, isn't he? By his colleagues from the army, and they go back to find this gold and to pay their respects to him and stuff. You needed somebody who could kind of make that work, somebody who had the charisma to really pull that off with just a few scenes, and I think he had that, and I think in a sad way though, like I watched that film for the second time Saturday night, and
that was played really differently now. My God, yeah.
Retrospectively, it's made even more poignant because, like his character, he's not gonna, he's gonna forever be in our minds as a man about that age. He's not gonna be able to grow old like his friends in the film did.
Amazing.
Shipwrecked and Comatose, a Red Dwarf podcast.
If you're trying to roll under something on 2d6, your average on 2d6 is 7. So if you've got a skill at, say, 2 as a main stat at 2, you're going to be trying to roll a 4 or under on 2d6. That's a really quite tricky roll. And 2 and 2 is not necessarily a bad stat in this game either. Stats are quite low.
Yeah, they did seem to be that, yeah.
Check out all of these shows and more on the We Made This podcast network.